friends, welcome back to another episode of the Cripple Chronicles podcast. If you're new here, hi, my name is Becca. I have one leg and a passion for mental health advocacy. But before all of this, and by this I mean sitting recording a podcast, I was a registered mental health nurse. If you have been here for a while, you will know I have shared bits and pieces of my nursing journey, and by bits and pieces, I mean all of it across like 2 episodes. Mostly all of it, I think. Probably forgot some things in there. But I had episodes where I have dived into my experiences as a nurse and then the things that have happened in my brain and how I have dealt with that since having my accident. This episode is part 2 of my series on the Mental Health Act. In part 1, I covered the basics of detention and different sections focusing on how the system works. And today, I wanted to take it a little bit further and have a look at advocacy, mental health officers, and how to better understand your rights if you are detained. Understanding these tools isn't just for those with lived experience of mental health. This is vital for family members, friends, and even professionals who want to better support individuals during what can be an incredibly difficult time. So, let's dive into this episode and break it all down. And I don't know, maybe this will be a bit shorter like the last episode, but I don't want to ramble on too much and make it too confusing. I want to just have these things as things here that people can go listen to if they need them. So that is why these episodes may be a bit shorter and not have as much of my own experience within them. It is just because I want there to be somewhere with information where that is available. And I know there are a lot of sources online where people can find this information, but I think sometimes it feels a little bit better having somebody to talk you through it than reading it, because that is the main reason why I started this podcast, to talk about my experience with the Lazaroff frames, because when I first got one, I was reading things in people's stories and it was terrifying. Like, I didn't know what to expect, and sometimes when it's coming from a friendly voice, I guess it feels a bit better. That is me assuming that people think I have a friendly voice, but I've been told that I have a very friendly nature. So, anyway, now that I am actually finished the introduction, well, I'm not, because I'm going to do a plug. Socials at Cripple Chronicles Pod, email cripplecroniclespod@gmail.com. I will come back to that at the end. If you want to tell me anything, drop me a message, drop me an email, even if it's just to say hi, or if there is anything you want me to share on the podcast. I would never share it without anybody's consent, but yes, that is there if you want to get in contact with me. But I am going to get into speaking about advocacy and what your rights are. Being detained under the Mental Health Act is a very challenging experience for a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that you're powerless. In fact, one of the most crucial safeguards is access to having an independent mental health advocate, and this is kind of shortened to an IMHA. So, what do independent mental health advocates actually do? These are like your personal guide through the Mental Health Act and the maze that it can be, and the ways mental health, the ways independent mental health advocates can help you is to explain your rights, why you have been detained, what options you have, and how you can challenge decisions. Help with meetings, whether it is care reviews or a tribunal, they'll make sure that your voice is heard. Accessing information, they can review medical records with your consent to help you understand what is being said about your care. Challenging decisions. If you disagree with a treatment plan or a detention, they will help you to navigate the appeal process of this, and it may in turn have a mental health tribunal about the detention. I think I have some information later on in my notes about mental health tribunals, so if you don't quite understand what that is, don't worry, I am getting to it. Firstly, how do you access an advocate to have these options in place? Hospitals are legally required to inform you about your rights to advocacy. If you haven't been told, ask your care team or search for local advocacy services. There are free, confidential services, so do not hesitate to reach out. In Scotland, we have mental health officers, MHOs. So, who are they and what do MHOs do? In Scotland, MHOs play a central role in mental health care, particularly when somebody is detained under the Mental Health Act. Think of them as a bridge between the individual healthcare providers and the legal system. MHOs are brought in when a doctor recommends an emergency detention certificate, which was mentioned in the last episode, or a short term detention certificate. When community detention orders or community treatment orders are being considered, an MHO will be involved. And if the person being detained needs additional support to understand what their rights are or navigate this process, and a mental health a mental health officer will also get involved. You can see how this can be confusing because even though I know this stuff and the legalities and things, when it is in front of me, it is very easy to get mixed up with it and have it as a bit of a jumble. So, this is why I am doing this. The responsibilities that mental health officers have are advocating for the individual's rights who is in hospital. They ensure that detention or treatment is appropriate and justified for whatever the person is in hospital for. Um, they provide consent for detentions. In most cases, an MHO's approval is required before somebody can be detained, and they are there to ensure that there is a fair process. They'll review medical recommendations and speak to the individual to ensure that their voice is part of the decision. A good mental health officer is somebody who listens, explains things clearly, and doesn't just stamp a decision as in, nah, I'm not really listening, I know what's best, because you need to have the person's voice in that. Healthcare is meant to be suited to the individual who is getting treatment. Therefore, it should be holistic. It should involve the feelings and the thoughts of the person who is being detained. They are there to protect your rights while balancing your safety and care needs. As an example, imagine you are being detained under a short term detention certificate. A mental health officer might meet with you to discuss why this is happening, ensure that you understand what is being proposed, and confirm that all legal steps have been followed in the process. If they disagree with the doctor's recommendation to section you, they will not give consent. They can refuse to give consent, and that means that you will not be detained. Mental health tribunals, like I said, I was going to come on to this. Mental health tribunals are another key safeguard under the Act. If you have been detained or you are on a community treatment order, you have the right to challenge these decisions. Preparing for a tribunal, you might do things with a mental health officer or other people who are helping you to um, prepare for your tribunal. The things that they might do are letting you know what to expect. Tribunals can be formal, however, not intimidating, they're not meant to feel intimidating. However, the panel includes a judge, a medical member, and a layperson. They will gather evidence, working with your advocates or solicitors to prepare documents that support your case, like treatment preferences or letters from loved ones about how you've been treated or how you have been acting and why this goes in opposition of the decision that has been made on your behalf. During during a tribunal, independent mental health advocates can speak on your behalf or help you to feel more confident by them presenting their case. During a tribunal, you will hear evidence from your care team about why they believe detention or restrictions are necessary. You'll have a chance to respond, share your perspective, and highlight any concerns. The panel will then decide whether to discharge you, uphold the detention, or also make changes to your care plan. I have seen tribunals go both ways. In some cases, individuals leave feeling validated and supported, and in others, the outcome may not be what they had hoped for, but the process itself, having their voices heard, can still be very empowering. How can families and friends support you when you are going through a mental health crisis or may be detained? One of the hardest parts of being detained is feeling isolated. If you are supporting somebody going through this, here are a few tips. Educate yourself. Learn about their rights under the Act and the role of advocacy. Offer practical help. Help them to access independent mental health advocates or prepare for a tribunal. Be present. Sometimes just showing up, whether it's a phone call, a visit, or attending a tribunal, is enough to make a difference. Avoid making decisions for your loved one unless they have asked for help. Detentions can feel very disempowering, so focusing on supporting their autonomy as much as possible. I also, before rounding off the episode, I thought I would maybe answer some common Q&As that might come up about advocacy or mental health advocates. So one of the questions may be, can you choose your advocate? To some extent, yes. While independent mental health advocates are assigned through local services, you may also be allowed to bring a trusted friend, family member, or solicitor to support you. What happens if a mental health officer does not agree with detention? The detention cannot proceed without their approval in most cases. MHOs act as a vital check and balance in the system for safeguarding. Are tribunals fair? Tribunals aim to be fair, but the experiences can vary. Having a strong advocate and preparing your case can significantly improve your chances of a positive outcome. And before I round off this episode, I also wanted to touch on advance statements and hospital passports. If you are somebody who is disabled and regularly needs to be in hospital for any amount of time for care for your disability or mental health, then you can have a hospital passport, and this can have in a variation of things such as how you want to be treated, how you don't want to be treated, what medications work for you, what medications don't work for you, what your communication preferences are, if you want them to see about advocacy, what kind of food you like, what kind of sensory things you can't stand, if there's any foods that will literally make you sick. You can put this all in your hospital passport. I have mentioned quite a few times about Eleanor, and she made a very good like hospital book passport for whenever she has to go into hospital, which explains her conditions, how she presents, what can be helpful in those moments if she is agitated or scared, or who to contact that can help her. She has thought about all of these things in her care. Unfortunately, with hospital passports, I'm not sure there is any kind of legal framework around them where they need to be taken into consideration. However, I know in Scotland that we have advanced statements, and advanced statements are something that you do when you are in sane mind and you want to think about if you are at crisis point, the same as a hospital passport. How would you like to be treated? How would you not like to be treated? What is helpful for you? What's not helpful? Who are the people to contact? You can have all of this information, and in an advance statement, this needs to be followed. And if it is not followed, then the care team that is looking after you needs to give an explanation on why this information has not been followed. So that is in Scotland. I did try to do some looking up if there are advanced statements in England. However, I feel like that is maybe going to be another episode where I go more into advanced statements and hospital passports, and at the moment, how you can create something that tells people how you want to be treated and how you would see would be fair treatment. So, in conclusion, again, another short episode of the podcast, which is odd when I record like 40-50 minutes at times, and I think it's only going to be 10 minutes. I thought these episodes were going to be a lot longer. However, I didn't want to put too much information in, so I hope this episode has shed some light on how advocacy and mental health officers work within the framework of the Mental Health Act. These tools exist to protect your rights and ensure fair treatment, but understanding them is the first step to using them effectively. If you have questions, you want to share your experiences, if there's anything that I've not covered in these episodes that you would pop into your head and say, what if this happens? Leave me a comment, drop me an email, and maybe I'll cover it later on down the line, because if there is people with questions, I am always happy to try and find an answer. Like I said at the start of the episode, you can send me these questions on TikTok or Instagram at Cripple Chronicles Pod. Drop me an email to cripplecchroniclespod@gmail.com. If you have any experiences that you just want to share and you would like if I didn't share them on the podcast, or you would like if I did, let me know. Like I said at the start, I would never kind of share somebody's business without having any consent of it. So yeah, I hope that you have enjoyed this and the last episode. If you have, then please think about subscribing, liking it on audio platforms, liking the video on YouTube, and yeah, hopefully I will see you shortly. Take care of yourselves,